we finished up the second woe last week with the two olive trees that are lampstands that are witnesses. We talked a little bit about some interpretations of them, but we're leaving a lot of the interpretations up for the end of the lesson. Just generally going through what the picture is and some of the basics of what it means. So that brings us to verse 15 through 19 of chapter 11. So then the seventh angel blew his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven, saying, The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders who sit on the thrones before God fell on their faces and worshipped God, saying, We give thanks to you, Lord God Almighty, who is and who was, and for you have taken your great power and begun to reign. The nations raged, but your wrath came, and the time for the dead to be judged, and for rewarding your servants, the prophets and saints, and those who fear your name, both small and great, and for destroying the destroyers of the earth. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and heavy hail. Okay. So, the seventh trumpet is interesting. It sort of mirrors the seventh seal, but while nothing immediately happens as well, it's not complete silence in heaven. But it's not silence for 30 minutes, but it is. It's not as immediately active as the other trumpets, right? Because when the first trumpet blows, what happens? It's in chapter 8, verse 7. All right. So the first trumpet blows, and immediately there's hail and fire. The second trumpet blows, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And the third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven. And the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck. And the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star falling from heaven to earth. And the sixth angel blew his trumpet, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar before God, saying, The sixth angel who had the trumpet released the four angels who were bound at the great river Euphrates. But there's immediate, action that follows each of the other trumpets. But with the seventh trumpet, there's immediate discussion, but no immediate action is taken. Instead, it's just reiterating things that we already know. The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. And the elders fall on their faces, they worship God. And after all the worship is complete, well, then the God's temple in heaven is opened, and the ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. And then there's flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, heavy hail. Right. So, and then we get into the action of the seventh trumpet in chapter 12. Essentially, there's a bunch of buildup before the action of the trumpet takes place. And so it's very similar to the sixth, or to the seventh seal, right? When the seventh seal is opened, there's just silence in heaven for half an hour, and then we get to whatever the events of the seventh seal are, which seems to be handing the seven trumpets out. Any observations or questions about the worship of the seventh trumpet?
What's the significance of the waiting 30 minutes?
From
Is it
the
30 minutes of our minutes, or is it 30 minutes of God's minutes that can be an indefinite amount of time?
for the seal?
Yeah.
So the seeming significance of the 30 minutes is simply that it's a long period of silence that's enough to feel
Really anxious.
yeah, it's enough to build tension, but it's not forever, right? It's definitely longer than most moments of silence last.
So it's like hearing the music for Jaws, but the shark isn't there yet.
Yeah. Um, the historists have a thing with minutes. Whenever they see minutes mentioned in the book of Revelation, they always say that 1 minute is 1 year, because it's supposed to be like a history. So the historists would say it's a 30-year period in which God does not perform his judgments on people. And since that's the historists connect the seven seals to the fall of Jerusalem or the judgment surrounding Jerusalem, it would then be God sort of postpones the judgment of the Romans for about 30 years after the destruction of Jerusalem, which works out to about 100 AD, which you can make a pretty convincing argument is about the time that the decline of the Roman Empire begins. So, like I said before, I don't think the historists are correct, but a lot of it's very elegant. It does sort of work out.
And is there any significance to where it says the Lord God Almighty who is and who was, but it doesn't say and forever will be? It's usually you hear the three of them together.
Yes, I would say that I think the significance of it is that it's a poem, and so going and who.
So it's not saying this, that's it for God.
Right. It's just he is and he was. We don't really need to we don't need to repeat that he is to come. We've already said that in the book, so we can get away with the synecdoche here. We don't have to repeat the whole thing.
Okay.
But also it's a poem, and so if we said the whole thing, it would mess up our rhyming pattern, or not rhyming pattern, but meter.
Yeah. Rhythm would be off.
Yeah. So the rhythm would be off. Plus, we can get away with the synecdoche because we've already said that he is to come back in the first few chapters.
Okay.
So, yeah. Plus, as you read the poem and the worship, it's very much focused on the judgment that is happening at the moment of the worship. So we don't need to reiterate that he is to come because we're focused on the present. And so we're focused on God's current actions, not his actions in the future.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions or comments on the seventh the worship of the seventh trumpet here? Verse 19 is interesting. So we have the temple in heaven, and it opens, and the Ark of the Covenant can be seen within his temple. But we know from the setup of the earthly temple, which mirrors the setup of the heavenly temple, that the Ark of the Covenant should be in the back of the temple. And so it is significant that it can be seen but simply by the doors opening, because it means that even in the heavenly temple, the veil has been torn. God is not separating himself from mankind. There's a comfort to the fact that God's not separating himself from us, but there's also, it should come with a healthy amount of terror, because, well, just like the people at the foot of the Mount Sinai, right? They got to hear God speak to them directly. And what did they ask Moses to do?
Go up by yourself because we're scared.
Right. Okay. That's not an inappropriate response to having God suddenly talk to you, but that's the position we are in right now as Christians, is in some ways we are to be our own priest and go before God ourselves. We have a high priest, but unlike the priest of old, there's no veil separating us from the ark. We have access to the mercy seat ourselves. So we have a great high priest.
See it, but you can't touch it.
Right. But yeah, we can approach the mercy seat of God ourselves. But there's flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and earthquake, and heavy hail, just to drive home the point that it is very, very significant to see the mercy seat of God. And this is the heavenly Ark of the Covenant. So it's not just a golden box. This the real deal. It's the real throne of God. And those aren't just golden cherubim. Those are real cherubim. All right. I have mentioned it a couple of times, but I think it's worth reiterating. With the other two trumpets that are called woes, we are told exactly when the trumpet ends. Verse 12 of chapter 9. The first woe is past. Behold, two woes is still to come. And then chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe has passed. Behold, the third woe is still to come. And yet never once in the rest of the book of Revelation are we told the third woe is past. So what's the obvious conclusion of that?
Hasn't happened yet. Or it's happening still.
Well, the seventh trumpet is the third woe. It's specifically said that the three trumpets, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, are all a woe. And we're told when the first two end, but we're never told when the third one ends. So what's the obvious conclusion?
End of salvation. End of salvation. Civilization, sorry.
Well, the obvious conclusion is the rest of the book is the third woe. As soon as the seventh trumpet blows, then we're never told that the third woe ends, because it doesn't end until the book ends. So there's not. The rest of the book is contained within the seventh trumpet. So just like the seven trumpets seem to be contained within the seventh seal, the rest of the book seems to be contained within the seventh trumpet. And we're going to get to something very similar when we get to the seventh bowl. The seventh bowl seems to contain sort of the rest of the book after it. I do point out in my notes it'd be a ridiculously long lesson if I structured it like if I just continued it until the third woe ended, because then it'd just be the rest of the book. So, so we're not structuring the lessons like that. We're just going to note it seems that the bowls are contained within the seventh trumpet. All right. We then get to a rather interesting passage that everyone seems to have a different interpretation of. Even the people who generally agree with each other. All right. Can I get someone to read verses 1 through 6 of chapter 12?
Good.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, traveling,
Travailing.
Okay, thank you. And birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, and that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
Okay. So, we have this great sign that appears in heaven. So the woman and the dragon do not start off on earth. Instead, we turn our attention back towards heaven. And there's this woman who's clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Now, who is she?
Mary.
It does seem to be a little bit of a picture of Mary.
I mean, just by going with the story, she gives birth to a male child, and God takes the child up to heaven.
The male child is often identified with Christ, which would make the image borrowing the picture of Mary very obvious. But I wouldn't say that this was Mary herself, because if it was Mary, I don't think John would have not said that. After all, who was...
Yeah, he'd probably know Mary, but
right?
facial recognition.
Yeah, because he's put in charge of Christ puts her in charge of him, or Christ puts him in charge of her while he's on the cross. He says, "Woman, behold your son, and behold your mother." Thus putting Mary under John's care. There is debate as to why he does this, because he does have other brothers, and so why does Jesus put John in charge of Mary?
I don't think it's really in charge of her either, is in the sense of he's her boss. I think it's in charge of as protecting
Right.
and guiding, because she's gonna be in huge distress, somebody's gotta
But
help her along.
I think the main reason is it shows that Jesus was still
Caring person.
caring for his mother. And I don't know that it's. A lot of people understand it to be Jesus putting John in charge of Mary indefinitely. And I think it does mention that John takes care of her from that day forward. That doesn't mean he's her exclusive provider. Because she does have other sons. I think what it is John. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that John and James are Jesus' cousins, at least not super distant, and it's quite possible that none of Jesus' biological half brothers are there at the crucifixion, and so he puts John in charge of making sure she gets home, and John steps up a little bit and also helps provide for her from that day forward a little bit. So I think that's perhaps more of what it is. But since John does take care of her from that day forward, you'd think that John would recognize Mary by face if he's seen her in a vision, and would identify her as such. So I don't think this is. It's borrowing some of the image of Mary, but I don't think it's a picture perfect Mary.
Unless you can't see the face.
I guess. It does say that she's clothed in the sun. What other vision have we seen the sun, the moon, and specifically 12 stars in? Does anyone remember? I'll give you a hint, it was back in Genesis.
Is it Joseph's
It was Joseph's dream. Yeah, Joseph had a dream in which 12 stars and the sun and the moon bowed down to him. And everyone immediately identified, well, the 12 stars are the 12 sons of Jacob, and the sun and the moon are Jacob and Leah. And so if the sun and the moon are Jacob and Leah, and the 12 stars that are on her head are the 12 sons of Jacob, who's this woman?
Leah.
Hmm?
Leah.
No, she's the moon.
Oh, she's, oh, never mind.
This isn't somebody from history. What does this woman represent?
Life.
What do the 12 tribes of Jacob make up? The 12 tribes of Israel make up?
They're God's people.
Okay, it's the Israelites. This is the nation of Israel being depicted as a woman clothed in the sun and standing on the moon, and with 12 stars making a diadem. But that does not remove the male child being the Christ, because Christ comes from the children of Israel. The red dragon is identified with Satan down in verse 9. He is depicted as a red dragon. What might be the significance of him being a red dragon?
Heat, flames,
Okay.
fire.
It very classically depicts him as like a fire-breathing dragon. Yeah. So he's powerful. Yeah. He has 7 heads. So why is his head 7? Incidentally, he has 7 diadems on each. Generally, it's thought it's 1 on each head. So he has 7 crowns on each of his 7 heads. So why has he got 7 heads and 7 crowns? That's what a diadem is. It's just a crown.
Service complete. Doesn't a crown represent like royalty?
Mm-hmm.
But
It does. I think it's the number 7 because he should have been perfect. He was created perfect, just as all things were made perfect. And he has authority. And it's not false authority, but he misuses his authority. And he has 10 horns because he is given power, and the power that he's given is complete. Right? Right, we can turn to the book of Job. Is Satan given authority there by God?
I don't know if you call it authority, but it was given permission to mess with Job, but not take his wife.
Right. So he is given authority by God to
do that.
to do things. But then he abuses that authority and he misuses it. But what authority he has is not false. But we're going to get into something where in his misuse of his authority, he does prop up things that have false authority, that don't have real authority, that don't have that real power. And so it does look like the dragon has won, and then it's snatched from him. So like I said, what exactly all of this means, we're going to get to later, because like I said, just about everyone disagrees on what exactly it means. No one really disagrees with is Satan himself is given authority of some nature. it's real authority. He abuses it and misuses it. And he is not going to be allowed to win.
So it's basically like an illusion of authority. Don't you think? I mean, because it's authority, but it's, I don't know, veiled, or, I don't know, however you want to put it, but.
It's middle management authority. He's not the CEO, but he likes to parade around like he is. All right. Yeah. And that parading around we're going to see a lot of in chapter 13. All right, so then we get to Satan thrown down to earth. Can someone read verses 7 through... Let's do 7 through 12 at the moment.
There was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, "Now had come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not weather the lion so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short."
All right. So, we have Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. They eventually win. Excuse me. They eventually win, and they throw the devil down to earth. There is a warning that is given, although it is accompanied by rejoicing that Satan has been cast out of heaven, but a warning to those on the earth that he's going to be madder than ever. He's going to be trying to deceive whoever he can. So then, verse 13 through 17.
When the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. The woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the desert, where she would be taken care of for a time, times and a half a time, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went out to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who obey God's commands and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And I think I'm not too far.
No, that's
No,
right.
yeah, okay, I see where it picks up again, okay.
Okay.
And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea.
Okay. So, the dragon tries to pursue the woman who gave birth to the male child, but she's given 2 wings of the great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent. And then she's in the wilderness, and she is given food while in the wilderness for a time, times, and half a time. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood, but the earth came to the help of the woman. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river, so the dragon had poured from its mouth. And the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring. So, if this is Israel, especially a spiritual Israel now, the dragon may try to devour all of Christianity, but is never going to be able to do that. But sometimes the dragon is given authority to devour some of the children of Israel, but never all of them. That's generally how many people interpret that particular bit of the passage. Right. Any questions or comments up to this point?
To make a good movie.
Yeah.
The graphics would be great.
Yes. Be almost like a Christian Fantasia. All right. So, now we get to the beast. So the dragon begins to make for himself other servants, and he wages war on the children of the woman. His first servant is a beast like to himself, with 7 heads and 10 horns. Although we're going to see that rather than a dragon, it's a cat. It's a leopard with lion's teeth and bare feet. It's a chimera, much like many of the other images in the rest of this book. All right, let's go ahead and read it. Verses 1 through... do 1 through 4 at first.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of life. And the beast which I saw was like upon a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
All right. So the dragon stands in the sand, and as he stands in the sand of the sea, there's a beast that rises out of the sea. It has 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear, and its mouth like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his authority and his throne and great authority. All right. Again, he's a cat rather than a dragon. He's a leopard with lion's teeth and bare feet. And he has the authority of the dragon, its horns, and its crowns. What are the significance of these images?
two superpowers that are a lot alike but a lot different at the same time. They both have same characteristics, but then they have completely opposite characteristics also. So you have a dragon and a weird leopard thing.
Right. So
And the devil's given this beast authority to do what it wants to do also. So they both have a lot of authority, even if it's misused.
um yes. So the dragon. Well, what are the qualities of a dragon? And I'm talking from like a mythical perspective.
They can fly. They have
Okay.
they breathe fire. They're destructive.
Long tails that, can be used as a weapon.
And they're up armored. They have scales that are hard to penetrate.
Okay. So it's hard to destroy a dragon. Guess what I'm kind of getting at is dragons are almost always depicted as crafty, right? Dragons they're not dumb. They're not stupid. Right? When a knight goes and he fights a dragon, he's not fighting a mindless beast. He's fighting something that thinks and is clever and is going to sort of pull every trick to kill him. Just like he's going to try to make the battlefield the dragon's going to push him to where he's got an advantage. Whereas if you're out hunting a lion, is the lion as crafty as a dragon? Or
Sneaky.
well, they're sneaky, but are they crafty?
Camouflage, still have better.
They're not so crafty.
They're quiet, so you don't know they're sneaking up on you.
They both have qualities that the other one doesn't necessarily possess in a mythological sense. But in this case, the dragon is giving its authority to this leopard beast. And this is as good a picture as I could find on the internet of someone's depiction of it. It's got a lot of identifying markers that identify it as getting its authority from the dragon rather than getting its authority from where it should. Right? It's got the 7 heads like the dragon does. You might say, well, 7's the number of perfection. But in this case, is it perhaps a perfect lie that the dragon has concocted? And it has the 10 horns of the dragon. And it's got the 7 crowns of the dragon. But in all ways, it's identified as something that comes from the dragon rather than something that comes from God. And it uses the authority of the dragon to heal a mortal wound on its head. So that the whole earth marvels as they follow the beast, and so they begin to worship the dragon. But it's kind of implied that they don't really understand that they're worshiping the dragon, because they're trying to worship the beast. But the beast gets his authority from the dragon. So if you worship the beast, you're really worshiping the dragon. So what does this beast represent? No, the dragon's the devil.
Well, if you look at it like this, you know, it's like the dragon, who's Satan,
Yeah.
is God's counterpart or whatever. I mean, you know, it doesn't mean opposite, whatever. And the beast is opposite of Christ, so it's like, you know what I mean?
That is how some people interpret it, as the beast is the Antichrist and the dragon is Satan.
Right.
But rather than that, what is perhaps something that in the real world has authority, sometimes from God, sometimes from Satan, but definitely from Satan if it's propping itself up as something to be worshipped? What earthly entities have the most authority? That's essentially the question.
What
What earthly entities have the most authority?
government?
Okay,
Government.
governments. So if you have a government that instead of getting its authority from God is getting its authority from Satan,
It's anti-government.
okay, you could call it an anti-government, but it's a dictatorship.
Well, yeah.
And then you often get people worshiping the government in one way or another under dictatorships, whether it's as blatant as the worship of the king under Roman or Egyptian rule, or if it's as subtle as state worship of the Stalinists. Anytime the government gets its authority from Satan instead of from God, you often find that people begin to worship the government for some perceived miracle of the state, whether or not it's a miracle. You notice that it says it seems to have a mortal wound. Well, that's an easy enough parlor trick to pull off, is to appear to stab yourself and, whoop, I'm all better. It's also got blasphemous names on its head. So the beast is given a mouth that's uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it's allowed to exercise its authority for 42 months. So what might be the significance of 42 months? Need my calculator for this, but
1,260 days,
okay.
roughly. Anyway, we covered something similar to this before.
Well, so the historist would say that rather than a specific government, this is the Catholic Church. And the papacy has been in power for, roughly 12,000 years. Or 1,200 years, not 12,000. 12,000 would be ridiculous. But 1,200 years, right? About the 42 months, depending on exactly when you want to put it there, and till the time of the Reformation movement, the Reformation movement, when the papal authority really diminished across Europe. So that's who the historist would identify this beast with. It's the Catholic Church getting their authority from Satan instead of from God, propping themselves up as miracle workers. Like I said, sometimes the historists are just really elegant. But the preterists say this is the Romans. There's lots of great evidence for it to be the Romans. I just brought up the Romans very much encouraged Caesar worship. Very much encouraged worship of the Caesar. And there were times that there was at least once in which the empire suffered a massive wound, so to speak, and then came back. And you can take that as if you're practically worshiping your government already, you can take that as a sign that we're gonna be in power forever. And, we can really up the worship of our government. And so then the 42 months becomes, rather than a specific amount of years, it's a long time. In fact, it's 7 times 6. Both the number of imperfection times the number of perfection. And so it's a false perfection, essentially. It seems like it's perfect and in charge of everything, but it collapses. The idealist would also identify it with Rome, but rather than specifically Rome, the idealist would say, well, this is every time any government props itself up as in the place of God, as something to be worshipped, as something to be lauded as more than just an institution of men, whether it's the United States getting themselves out of hand, whether it's the Stalinist of the 20th century, whether it's Britain propping itself up as the empire that the sun never sets on. Anytime a government props itself up as more than just an institution given authority from God to govern the daily concerns of men, they have overstepped their bounds and they're claiming authority that isn't theirs, and it's Satan's authority. And so to some degree, every government's going to do this. The question is, are you doing it so much that you've become the beast from the sea? And instead of just being a government of people. To further the points of both the preterist and the idealist here, we're gonna quickly cover this and the second beast, and then I'll mention this, and then we'll be done for the day because we're out of time already. The number of the beast that the second beast begins to put on people's heads is 666. Some manuscripts separate out the 666. A lot of manuscripts write it out as 666. It makes more sense to me to emphasize that it's 666 because you have the number 6 repeated 3 times. And so what's the number 3? What does the number 3 represent?
God, Trinity.
All right. So, but what's number 6 represent?
Imperfection.
So, it is an imperfect being claiming divinity. That's the number of a man. That's the significance of 666 or 666. It's not a real number anyone's ever going to be stamping on their forehead. I mean, obviously there's people, really dumb idiots who get it tattooed on their head, but but that's not the point. The point is not whether or not anyone's going to get it tattooed on their head in real life. The point is, it's something that's imperfect, claiming divinity. And anytime that happens, you're going to get into a world of trouble, and everything's just going to go downhill from there. And how fast it's going to go downhill from there is really kind of dependent on how little people are hitting the brakes and all that, right? Because things can get out of hand real fast, right? We've seen cults get out of hand real fast in the 20th century with men claiming divinity. We've seen governments get out of hand real fast, basically claiming the authority of God. Sometimes it takes years and years, right? The Romans, it takes them a long time to collapse in on themselves. But it's not pretty for a long period of their history because of how much corruption there is. And it all stems from this hubris of claiming divinity and claiming authority that's not really there. Whichever government it is. All right. We'll pick up with the second beast next week. No, 2 weeks from now. I won't be here next week. Next week we'll have a video go out on the types of love found in the New Testament. So hopefully that'll be interesting. But no one will be here I won't be here this next Wednesday, so I guess you guys could all show up and watch it together, but it'll just be released onto YouTube. All right. Go ahead and say a